Good evening, everyone. So, welcome to our show this evening. And today is a continuation of a series on leadership. What does leadership mean? And um, what are the different aspects that make somebody a leader? So, every week we talk about one aspect of leadership. And today I want to talk about positivity. This is sort of why is it important to be positive? Especially when we are going through something like we're going through right now. It feels like being positive is a luxury. You wake up in the morning and you don't know, what's coming your way, whether you can survive or not, or, what's happening. So, how can you stay positive? Why should you stay positive? Uh, my father had a term that he would call himself, and I think it's something he passed on to all of us. Is that he would call himself a hopeless optimist. So it's sort of any which way you turn him, anything you throw him at, he'll look at it the positive way and say that, oh, we are glad at least we have this, whatever that is. And I think that's definitely rubbed off to all three of us sisters, and with my elder sister leading the charge. And so I thought for a leader, why positivity is important, and what are the different aspects of it. So, I always love starting and ending with stories. So I'll start with a story. This is the story of a place in Thailand where there's a beautiful, large mud Buddha. It's a beautiful idol. A lot of people worship it, but it's there. You pass by every day, and it's a sight that's familiar to a lot of people. And it's you walk by. One day a monk is walking by, and somehow there is a sun hitting the mountain. He just sees like something glowing, from Buddha's statue, and some tiny piece of it. And he wonders what it is, and then he looks, he scrapes it a little bit, and sees a little bit more light, a little bit more something shining. And finally, they scrape it, and like under layers and layers and layers of mud lies a completely golden statue of Buddha. So, historically, what happened is that the Buddhist monks created this Buddha all with gold. But they got news of some foreign invaders coming onto the country, and they didn't want the foreign invaders to steal this Buddha or destroy this Buddha or break it down to pieces and take the gold home. So what they did is they worked for weeks and covered it with layers and layers and layers and layers and layers of mud. So it looks like a Buddha statue, but you can't tell that it's not made of mud. And it was such a revelation to everybody, etc. And what this story made me think about is that we all, you know, leaders, employees, husbands, wives, daughters, sons, every one of us has a golden insight for all of us. There is something we are meant to do in this world. There is something we are really good at. I mean, even a thief is really good at, you know, cracking open safes, whatever. Everyone has that gold inside them. It's just that our equivalent of mud is whether it is ambition or jealousy, power hungry, or insecure, whatever it is. We put layers and layers and layers and layers and layers on top of us. So what we seem to the outside world is really not even close to what lay inside. So the true purpose of a leader, the true purpose of being a positive person is to go deep within and find that person who you are inside that's waiting, and bring it out and share it with everybody else. And when that comes out, people can't stop looking at you, they can't stop being with you, they can't stay away from you, they follow you. So I thought I would talk about the importance of positivity. So, how do we remove these layers? What are the things we need to do to remove the layers and find the golden self that lays inside, that can truly be a great friend to people, be a catalyst in their progress, etc. I thought I will do this, in a way that you would remember. So I'm talking about being positive, being optimistic, right? So let's take the first four letters of optimism, which is OPTI, right? So I will talk about various aspects of optimism, of being positive in this acronym, OPTI. So the first one is O, okay? The O is for one on one. The way to spread positivity is to build very strong one on one relationships. You can spread positivity en masse. You can talk to 100 of your employees, 1,000 of your employees, or 10,000 of your employees and spread positivity. And it's even important to find the 10 people or the 20 people that matter and be one on one, have a, spread that positivity in a very, very close way, because they will do it to their circle and then they will do it to their circle, etc. So, Dave Roberts is the uh, coach, is with LA Dodgers. And if I get the team wrong, please don't kill me. But Dave Roberts says that, before every game, or the way he builds relationships with his players is he goes and gives them a big hug, like a 5-second hug, like a bear hug, like a father would give a son. And he just holds them like 1001, 1002, 1003, 1004, 1005. You hold them and then you hold the next person. So while he's rah-rahing the whole team and getting them excited, we got to go, we got to win, and all that stuff, it's that one on one connection to say, I care for you. You are my child, and I'm going to care for you. You know, so it's sort of that spending that one on one time. I mean, even at Intel, they used to say that you must have one on one with each of your direct reports. And the one on one belongs to the employee, not to the boss. It is employee's agenda. It's not about another meeting where the boss tells you what to do. Make sure you do this, you do this, you do this. No. This is a meeting where employee comes to the boss and says something like, these are the 10 things I'm being asked to do. And I have only 5 hours. What is your priority? What do you want me to do? Okay, or that, I'm just not feeling appreciated these days, or my heart is not in this job. What do you think I should do? It could be anything. I have this problem at home, I need to solve this. Do you think I can get a 2 month sabbatical so I can work it out? Whatever it is the agenda of the employee, and it's up to them to decide what they want to discuss. So that one on one is extremely important, to have a very positive relationship with someone. No matter how much in group we do, that one on one relationship is important. So that's the letter O. So now we come to the letter P, which is about purpose. And this is a very, very important thing, is when you are in a company, when you're talking to your employees, when you are um, or you are getting them to do something, or you are getting everybody excited to hit a sales target, whatever it is, whatever positive message you want to spread, you got to be very clear of the purpose. Okay, a lot of times we want something positive done because it'll benefit us. The the thing is, it will be spread very well if we really understand how it will benefit the other person, not just how it will benefit us. So when you're thinking of a purpose, think of the purpose that will benefit your immediate employee as well as the community, the larger community that's out there. So let's take an example of, you want to sell, you know, computers, say. And this is what actually we did in, when I was at Intel. Like people would come and say, "Oh my God, we have a new chip, and it has this kind of a thing, that kind of a thing. It has this many gates, that many. It can crank this many terabytes of data." We are all talking about tons of things that, and they are very, very unique. They are very, very different, and there is a lot of innovation in it. There's a lot of innovation in the efficiency. There's an innovation in process. There's an innovation in the chip design. All these things are there. And so if I'm talking to the design team and I want to get them very excited about hitting the targets, hitting the timeline, etc., you first need to congratulate them on all the features they have accomplished, in terms of look at how much information you've put in, how much real estate and the process technology and the design people work very well together to get these things out. And we are, our efficiency has increased, from whatever 30%, we are up to 60% in yield, whatever the numbers are. So they are all engineers. They are excited about what they have produced out there. So the spreading the positivity, spreading the purpose is about your purpose, you engineers, is to make this chip as fast and as uh, cheap as possible. So we need to put a lot more information. The yields have to be very high and give them that information. That's what brings the positivity. Now, when you go to the marketing people and you want them to be really positive about selling these chips, talking about here are the 20,000 features and this, that, doesn't matter to them, right? They're saying, how do I sell this? How do I position it? How do I market it out there? So you need to think of the purpose has to be much larger, you know. So the purpose of this new chip is it allows us to, and this is where we used to have these conversations about you got to keep asking a so what question. You say so what, so what, so what, and you really get to the bottom of something. So you say, now when you go to the marketing person, you say, okay, this chip has this many features, so what? Because of the features, it can, crank the data very, very fast. Okay, so what? Because it can crank it very, very fast, we can get results for anything fast. So what? So you get down to where you say that because it's so fast, that a medical information that's fed into it that is analyzing whether certain disease is there or not used to take 24 hours, and because of this new chip, because of its capability, you can get it in 20 minutes at half the cost. Now the marketing person has something to go out. Your purpose is to put a machine in the hands of a doctor that helps them serve their customers at a cheaper rate and give them the information they need at a faster pace. So, the purpose is communicated in a very, very different way to a marketing person compared to an engineer, compared to an end user, compared to the finance person. So if you're talking to your controller, you're talking to the finance manager, etc., they are interested in what is it costing. So the purpose there is to communicate to them, this is the best chip because the yields are very good. And because of that, we are able to get a lot more die out of each disk. So our costs have come down. So they say, oh, okay, great. Our costs have come down. Our profit margin has gone up. It's good for the shareholders. So the purpose of that communication is very different than the purpose to the other two people. So the purpose is extremely important to spread positivity. The way to spread positivity among salespeople is very different than engineers, is very different than finance people. So you need to give them their purpose, give them the answer that matches their purpose to be able to feel very positive about it and say, oh, great, now I'm going to go do even better, you know. So that's the second thing that's very, very important. Now we come to T of Opti. T is about tiny moments. You know, a lot of times anything big you take on, it takes a long time to accomplish it. So I was talking to somebody in public policy the other day. Anything you put out there takes you 3-4 years by the time it's done. And you have to do multiple revisions and all that stuff. And then I talked to scientists who have been working on something for 20 years on the shoulders of giants who have worked on it for another 30, 40 years. So science is a very iterative process, right? And it takes a very long time to prove something or disprove something or invent something. So how do you keep yourself motivated? So even in a business, a lot of times we are very short term focused. This quarter, what are the results? This time, what's happening, etc. Even in that, it's from today to the end of a quarter, if it's 3 months, it's a very long time. You don't know if you're going to hit the sales or not. You don't know if quarterly results are going to be good or not, if your customers are going to be happy or not. Any bomb, anything could drop any minute, right? So we need to, so how do you keep people motivated? How do you keep yourself positive day after day? So this is where the tiny moments come. While have a vision clear, we know where we are going. We know we need to make that $100 million at the end of the quarter, or $1 million at the end of the quarter, or 10,000 rupees by the end of the quarter. Whatever the overall vision is, the vision is clear. So we need to find tiny wins each day. Today I called 20 customers and two of them said yes. Good for me, you know. And that yes conversation, how wonderful it was. So when I was in business school, I was a graduate assistant. Sorry. And I used to do market research. And these are like in those days, I mean, now I'm really dating myself. There would be white pages, there would be telephone directory, and you have to make very random calls. So you open the telephone directory and you say, okay, I'm going to call every 10th person. And this was about behavioral science, marketing, various things to ask people what is their behavior in buying, all kinds of things. So, this is one of the first projects I got when I became a graduate assistant. So I'd be sitting in this room and I have this phone book in front of me and we have these numbers. You call them and say, hello, I'm so and so calling from so and so organization, and I'm calling you to find out about whatever the purpose is. And half the time people don't answer the phone, and then another third of the time they call it, they're like, they just hang up on your face. And sometimes they say, they're very polite and firm and say, look, please don't call me, I'm not interested in something like this. But after you make 20 calls, somebody picks up, and then you say, hey, I'm here to talk about it. They're like, sure, I have a couple of, and you say, do you have 5 minutes to answer it? Sure, I have 5 minutes. And then you have this conversation, and then you are asking, and they're answering, and you had like the most amazing insight from the conversation. And you put the phone down, you feel so happy. You're supposed to get 100 responses. That means, every 20, if you're getting, one yes or two yeses, that means for every 10, you're getting one yes. So if you want 100, you need to talk to 1,000 people, etc., etc. But think of that one person who answered, not about the other 9 or 19 or whatever who didn't answer. And you go to bed feeling really good about it. Wow, that was such an interesting conversation I had. Um, and when I first went to America, I was a door to door Avon saleswoman. I would just go, and it was like bitter cold in Syracuse, New York. And I would go knock on the door, and somebody would open up and say, "Hi, I am so and so Lakshmi, and I'm your Avon lady, and I have all these things. Would you like to buy?" Most of them won't even open the total door because it's so cold. They just open the inside door, and they're like, "No, not interested." And I remember on my first day, there's this one guy that opened the door, and I said, "Would you like it?" He said, "Come on in." And I went in and I sat down. I showed him the whole thing, and it was, getting close to Christmas. He was saying, Christmas is coming. I've been thinking of buying my mom something, but I don't know what to buy her. So I told him, let's figure it out. And that's my first day on the job, right? And my boss told me that the most expensive thing in that catalog was a music box, music jewelry box. You open it, and there's beautiful music that comes, and you put jewelry in it. So I told him, I said, I said, why not go for it? So I told him, why don't you look at this music box? It's something special for your mother. Because I asked him, what's your price range? Blah, 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 all these things. And then he said, yeah, that sounds really good. It's a beautiful one. Why don't you order it for me? So he gave the advance. I ordered it. I was like over the moon. I came home. I called my boss and I said, you know what? Today I got an order for a music box. She's like, you gotta be kidding me. You sold something so expensive on day one, because most of the soaps we sold were like $1, $2. And this was like a $50 music box or a $40 music box or something like that. And I swear, for like a whole month, I went to bed just savoring that moment. And the best part was when this music box came, I took it and gave it to him, and he went home for the holidays and came back. And he told me, he said, my mom loved it so much. Thank you so much for selling it to me and giving me an idea that day. So, initially I felt a little bit like, my God, did I like make the student buy something so expensive where he shouldn't have bought it, etc. But then it made me feel so good that his mother loved it so much. So the point is at that tiny moment, and I had so many doors banged shut on my face and so many cold nights that I walked. But that moment carried me. Like that tiny moment, I would think about it. And every day there would be one tiny moment, Somebody would say, oh, come on in. Would you like a cup of coffee? And buy two soaps from me. And I made a new friend. And I was like, this is a great way to make friends in my neighborhood. So the tiny moments are very, very important. And the last thing is in Opti, the I is about, we always need to make the message interesting. We need to be enthusiastic about it. We need to be introspective about it. We need to make it interesting to the other person, not interesting to us, but how do you make it interesting to the other person? It's about explaining it through stories, through benefits, through what's important for them. When I sold that music box, I was thinking about what's important for him, not what did I want to sell the most. There was a very expensive perfume there. There's a very expensive this, but I had to think of how can I make it interesting for him and his mother, you know. So if you think about making the conversation interesting, making the journey interesting, they are with you throughout. It's not about a transactional thing. It's not about, I got this, what a deal I got for you. You get it and walk away. It's not like that. So it is to making that message as interesting as possible. I have seen people who use demos. I've seen people who use songs, who use metaphors of stories and uh, compare it to certain character in a movie. I mean, there is so many ways in which you can make a message interesting. And so for that, you really need to understand who you're talking to and make it interesting to that person. As I said earlier, if it's an engineer, the way you make it interesting is through data. If it's a marketing person, you make it interesting through how they can benefit their customers. If it's a process technologist, you make it interesting through talking about physics and chemistry. And so it depends on who you're talking to. You have to make it interesting for them. So just to summarize, we are going through a very strange time right now. How do we stay positive in these times? And how do we stay positive in any time? So if we, apply this optimism, the one-on-one relationships we need to build with the people who matter the most. The purpose, be very clear about the purpose. Taking really joy in tiny moments and make it interesting. So I thought I'll end it with another story, and this is about the time when I lived in Portland, Oregon. I got into mountain climbing, and any of you who know me, or you'll know that I'm not an athlete by any stretch of imagination. If you talk to any of my friends who grew up with me, they will swear that I don't know how to play. The only time I ever played or participated in any sports was when I was in Nizam College, where they wanted to have a girls' team. There were so few girls that they would take any girl into a sports team and to make the 11th or to make the whatever. That's the only reason I was in any sports. Otherwise, I'm not an athlete. But I just decided I have to get into mountain climbing. And not being the athlete that I am, it was a lot of work for me. I joined this club called the Mazamas, and I would go climbing with them every weekend, and I would always be the last one, climbing up there and stuff. And so finally, the day came. We had to go up Mount Hood, and you start at like midnight. And I already, we went on that climb, and I was miserable. I just turned back and came back. I just couldn't do it. I was very disappointed, and I was determined I'm going to go back a month later, and I'm going to do it again. So I talked to people. I learned that you have to run, you have to build your lung capacity, etc. So I went back. Now, when I went back a month later and I started climbing, still it was tough because you start climbing at midnight because that's when the snow is really packed. And you're wearing these boots and all these clothes and backpack, and there is crampons. It's not easy to walk. We went like 50, 60% of the way, and I was talking to my leader, and I said, man, it feels like I'm not going to make it this time either. I just am so tired. So my leader, I still remember Paula, she looked at me and she said, Lakshmi, don't worry about reaching the peak. Just remember your next step. That's it. Only think of your next step and don't worry about anything else. If you need to turn back, I'll come back with you. Don't worry about it. But just think of the next step. And that was like a bulb went off in my head. And that's what it was, just one step after one step after one step. And I was, one of the first ones to reach the peak. So in times like this, when you don't know where you're going, for me, when I don't know where I'm going, I don't know where my company is going, I don't know where my team is going, I don't know where the money is going to come from, I have no idea. You just say it's one step at a time, one day at a time. Who are the 10 people I talked to, at least did one of them say yes? That is the tiny moment. Take it one step at a time. So be positive. Remember Opti, one on one, purpose, and and the tiny moments, make it interesting, one step at a time. Have a great time. Bye bye.